Hi, this is Mandy back with part 2 of the rules. We'll call this one the rules. Okay, so why do we see so often in this population that they seem rule bound or like the rules or like routine or like structure? Again, if we go back to the way that their mind works and the way that we're teaching and inputting information with this population, for them it's very straightforward. And this is why one of my favorite speech pathologists, Janice Nathan in the Pittsburgh area, she says concrete, 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 right? You need to just be blunt with this population because the extra syntax, the extra emotional connotations, the nonverbal pieces are just not natural for a lot of people in this diagnostic category to be able to learn incidentally on their own or pick up from the environment. So we have to script that and we have to teach them step by step. And we call this a task analysis and applied behavior analysis. So when we are looking at rules, right, how we are teaching these kids, okay, when we get up in the morning, brush your teeth, eat breakfast, get dressed, go to school. That's the routine. It's easier for these kids to learn that because it's concrete, it's spelled out. There's not a lot of flexibility. There's not negotiation in there. This sidebar secret is one of the reasons why ABA, when done correctly, works so well because it takes out a lot of that syntax that becomes confusing and can elicit an emotional response. So when we have rules and when we have structure, right, this is how we teach these kids. So if you notice with your own kids, the more clear the expectation is, clear, concise, concrete, right, those are the 3 rules for a good ABA directive, they tend to do better, and then there's the reinforcement aspect, which I'm not going to touch upon on this video. So when we think about rules for these kids, right, even let's say going to the store. Okay, so there might be a certain route. Like a lot of these kids, sometimes I'll hear their parents say, oh, we have to go the same direction in the car to the store or my child gets really upset. Well, they get upset because they're used to the certain pattern. Their brain finds comfort in the certain pattern because that's what they know. It's kind of like, if you can think about the worst surprise that you've ever experienced that was really unexpected, imagine how you felt when you were on the receiving end of that information. It didn't feel too good. So when there's a breach of a rule for these kids, it can be that anxiety provoking because their brain needs to know the structure. And again, neurologically, these kids are different. I'm not a physician. I'm not going to go into the brain and the structural differences, but this is why there's comfort in rules and routine for them, and the flexibility piece is hard. So we have rules. We can get overly focused on the rules, which is the other extreme, which personally as a clinician, it's easier for me to work backwards to overscript with rules and then shave and tweak down for most kids. But whatever your behaviorists are directing you to do. So when you're looking at the rules and flexibility, when you have an unexpected outcome, right? We don't know what's going to happen. Maybe your child's sick. School tomorrow. They say, you really don't know. You don't want to say yes and you don't want to say no. So you say maybe. And then they keep asking, school tomorrow, school tomorrow. So some parents will just say no or yes and just take a stab and a guess that maybe it'll happen so that the child stops to ask. Because if they get a concrete response, then that can help them shape their expectation. Maybe or I don't know is probably one of the hardest concepts for this population. And I remember back when I was in my center-based program teaching that we had a yes-no program. And this is so difficult because, first of all, when we're teaching, a lot of the idea of yes and no, we're basing on facts. When it comes to opinions, right? How do you feel? What's the weather outside, and it's sort of this in-between, when you're looking for a yes-no response with that, this can be really tough for this population once you start to dig from a curriculum standpoint, because they're looking for the right answer for that script. And it's impossible, right, to write a script. Those of you who have written scripts and social stories out there, it's impossible to write a script for every situation in the environment. So we do the best that we can, especially with kiddos that don't have a lot of spoken language, to give them as many scripts as possible. So the next video is really what I intended to do next, and I wanted to talk about TBD, maybe, and uncertainty. Stay tuned.